Have you ever found yourself staring at a task you know you need to complete, feeling that familiar knot in your stomach, yet somehow unable to move forward? You sit there, fully aware that delaying will only make things worse, watching the minutes tick by as anxiety builds like pressure in a sealed container. Yet your fingers remain frozen, your mind spinning in circles, trapped in a cycle that feels both maddening and inexplicable. This isn't laziness. This isn't simply poor time management. This is something far more complex, something that millions of people experience daily but rarely understand. Because here's what most people don't realize about procrastination. It's not actually about time at all. It's about emotion. And the psychology behind why we delay tasks, even when we know it's hurting us, reveals something profound about human nature itself. See, when researchers first started studying procrastination decades ago, they expected to find simple explanations. Maybe people just needed better planners or stronger willpower. But what they discovered was far more intricate. They found that procrastination is fundamentally an emotion regulation problem disguised as a time management issue. Your brain, in its attempt to protect you from discomfort, creates elaborate avoidance strategies that feel logical in the moment but destructive over time. Think about the last time you procrastinated on something important. What was really happening in your mind? Chances are it wasn't that you forgot about the task or didn't care about the outcome. More likely, thinking about the task triggered a cascade of uncomfortable feelings, maybe fear of failure, perfectionism, overwhelm, or even fear of success. Your brain, designed to move you away from pain and toward pleasure, offered an immediate escape. Check social media, organize your desk, suddenly clean the entire house, anything but face that looming responsibility. But here's where it gets fascinating. Studies using brain imaging technology show that when procrastinators think about a dreaded task, their amygdala, the brain's alarm system, lights up as if responding to a genuine threat. Their prefrontal cortex, responsible for planning and impulse control, actually becomes less active. In other words, procrastination isn't a character flaw. It's your brain's misguided attempt to protect you from psychological discomfort. This explains why traditional advice about procrastination often fails spectacularly. Telling someone to just use a better planner or break tasks into smaller chunks misses the emotional core of the problem. It's like telling someone with a phobia to simply think positive thoughts. The fear response happens automatically, below the level of conscious control. What makes this even more complicated is that procrastination often provides genuine short-term relief. When you avoid that difficult conversation, skip working on that challenging project, or delay making that important decision, you experience immediate emotional relief. Your anxiety drops, the uncomfortable feelings fade, your brain interprets this as success and files away procrastination as an effective coping strategy. But of course, this relief is temporary and costly. The task doesn't disappear. If anything, it grows more intimidating with time. Deadlines approach. Consequences loom larger. The original discomfort gets amplified by guilt, shame, and increased pressure. Yet even knowing this intellectually doesn't stop the cycle, because the emotional brain operates faster than the rational brain. Research has identified several distinct emotional triggers that drive procrastination. Fear of failure tops the list. When your sense of self-worth becomes entangled with your performance, any task becomes a referendum on your value as a person. The stakes feel impossibly high. Your brain reasons that if you don't try, you can't fail, preserving your self-image even as opportunities slip away. Then there's perfectionism, which might seem like the opposite of procrastination, but is actually its close companion. Perfectionists often delay starting tasks because they know they won't be able to execute them flawlessly from the beginning. They'd rather not start than produce something mediocre. This creates a cruel paradox where the desire to do something perfectly prevents you from doing it at all. Fear of success presents another counterintuitive trigger. Success brings visibility, responsibility, and higher expectations. Some part of your mind calculates that achieving your goals might fundamentally change your life in ways you're not prepared for. So procrastination becomes a way of maintaining the status quo, keeping yourself small and safe. Task aversion plays a role too. Some activities simply feel inherently unpleasant, boring, or meaningless. When you can't connect a task to your deeper values or find any intrinsic motivation, your brain treats it like medicine you're supposed to swallow. Every fibre of your being resists. The feeling of being overwhelmed creates another pathway to procrastination. When a project seems too large, too complex, or too undefined, your brain simply shuts down rather than attempt to process the enormity of what's required. This is why people often procrastinate most on the tasks that matter most to them. What's particularly insidious about procrastination is how it compounds over time. Each episode of avoidance strengthens the neural pathways associated with delay. Your brain becomes increasingly skilled at generating reasons to postpone action. Meanwhile, your confidence in your ability to handle challenging tasks erodes, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of doubt and avoidance. The emotional aftermath of procrastination deserves special attention because it reveals something crucial about why this pattern persists, despite its obvious costs. After avoiding a task, most people don't feel satisfied or relieved for long. Instead, they experience what researchers call the procrastination hangover, a mixture of guilt, anxiety, and self-criticism that can be more painful than the original task avoidance was meant to prevent. This emotional aftermath serves a function, though not a helpful one. It reinforces the belief that you are somehow flawed or broken, which ironically makes future tasks feel even more threatening. When you believe you're the type of person who can't follow through, every new responsibility becomes evidence of your inadequacy waiting to be revealed. Yet understanding the emotional roots of procrastination opens up possibilities that willpower alone cannot provide. The key lies not in forcing yourself to feel different, but in changing your relationship with the discomfort itself. Because here's what most people miss about breaking the procrastination cycle. The goal isn't to eliminate the uncomfortable emotions that trigger avoidance, it's to learn how to move forward while those emotions are still present. This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of waiting until you feel motivated, confident, or ready, you begin to recognize that action often precedes feeling, not the other way around. The motivation you're waiting for might never come, but you can act anyway, carrying your anxiety, your doubt, your resistance along with you like uncomfortable passengers on a necessary journey. Neuroscience reveals something remarkable about this approach. When you consistently take action despite emotional discomfort, you literally rewire your brain. The pathways between thinking about a task and feeling threatened begin to weaken. Meanwhile, new connections form between task engagement and feelings of capability. Your brain starts to learn that the things you've been avoiding aren't actually dangerous. But this rewiring process requires a particular kind of gentleness with yourself that most chronic procrastinators struggle to access. The harsh inner critic that emerges after each episode of delay actually makes the problem worse by adding shame to an already overwhelming emotional mix. When you berate yourself for procrastinating, you create additional negative associations with the tasks you're avoiding. Think about how you talk to yourself after procrastinating. Chances are you wouldn't speak to a friend that way, yet this self-criticism feels justified because you believe it will motivate you to do better next time. Instead, it typically strengthens your brain's assessment that these tasks are threatening situations to be avoided. Self-compassion, though it might sound soft or permissive, actually creates the psychological safety necessary for behavioral change. When you can acknowledge your procrastination without attacking your character, you free up mental energy that was previously consumed by self-judgment. This energy becomes available for actual problem-solving and action. The timing of intervention matters tremendously. Most people try to address procrastination at the moment they're supposed to be doing the avoided task. But by then, the emotional cascade is already in full swing. Your amygdala is activated, your prefrontal cortex is offline, and rational strategies feel impossible to implement. More effective intervention happens earlier in the process. This means becoming aware of the subtle emotional shifts that precede procrastination. Maybe it's a slight tightening in your chest when you think about checking email. Perhaps it's a familiar sense of dread when you see a particular item on your to-do list. These early warning signs are your opportunity to intervene before avoidance becomes automatic. What you do with these early signals determines whether you'll fall into familiar patterns or create new possibilities. One powerful approach involves simply naming what you're experiencing. When you notice anxiety arising around a task, you might say to yourself, "I'm noticing anxiety." When perfectionist thoughts emerge, you acknowledge them. "I'm having the thought that this needs to be perfect." This practice of naming creates psychological distance between you and your emotional experience. Instead of being consumed by anxiety, you're observing it. Instead of being paralyzed by perfectionist thoughts, you're noting their presence. This small shift can be the difference between automatic avoidance and conscious choice. From this place of awareness, you can begin to experiment with taking tiny actions despite the discomfort. Not heroic efforts that your brain will resist, but movements so small they slip under the radar of your internal alarm system, opening a document, reading one paragraph, writing a single sentence. These microactions serve multiple purposes. First, they prove to your brain that the task isn't actually dangerous. Each small step provides evidence that contradicts the threat assessment driving your avoidance. Second, they create momentum that makes the next small step easier. And third, they begin to rebuild your trust in your own ability to follow through, even in small ways. The relationship between procrastination and identity runs deeper than most people realize. When you repeatedly avoid tasks, you begin to see yourself as someone who doesn't follow through. This identity becomes self-reinforcing because people generally act in ways consistent with how they see themselves. If you believe you're a procrastinator, procrastinating feels natural and inevitable. But identity is more flexible than it appears. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. When you take one small step despite feeling resistant, you're voting for someone who can act despite discomfort. When you treat yourself with compassion, after procrastinating instead of harsh criticism, you're voting for someone worthy of kindness. These votes accumulate over time, gradually shifting your sense of who you are and what you're capable of. The person who consistently avoids difficult tasks and the person who regularly takes small steps, despite resistance, are living in different psychological realities. The transformation happens not through dramatic change, but through the accumulation of slightly different choices made consistently over time. Understanding why procrastination feels bad yet persists reveals something profound about the human condition. We're emotional beings trying to navigate a world that often demands rational responses to irrational feelings. The discomfort you feel when procrastinating isn't a bug in your system. It's a feature alerting you to the gap between your intentions and your actions, between who you want to be and how you're currently behaving. This discomfort, properly understood, becomes information rather than condemnation. It tells you that something important to you is being neglected. It points toward values you care about but aren't currently honouring. Rather than numbing or avoiding this discomfort, you can learn to listen to what it's trying to tell you. So the next time you find yourself trapped in that familiar cycle, staring at a task while anxiety builds in your chest, remember this: you're not broken, you're not lazy, you're not fundamentally flawed, you're simply human, experiencing the complex interplay between emotion and action that defines our species. Your brain, in its misguided attempt to protect you, has learned patterns that once served a purpose, but now hold you back. The path forward isn't about becoming someone who never feels resistance or doubt. It's about becoming someone who can feel those things and move anyway. Someone who understands that discomfort is information, not instruction. Someone who treats themselves with the same compassion they would offer a friend struggling with the same challenge. Because here's the truth that changes everything. The person you're becoming is shaped not by your perfect moments, but by what you do in your imperfect ones. Every small step you take despite feeling resistant, every moment of self-compassion after falling back into old patterns, every time you choose awareness over automatic reaction, you're rewiring the very neural pathways that created this struggle in the first place. The task you've been avoiding is still waiting. The discomfort you've been running from is still there. But now you have something different. You have understanding, and sometimes understanding is the first step toward freedom. Drop a comment and share your story. And if this resonated with you, hit like and subscribe because we dive deep into psychology that actually explains how your mind works. See you next time.